Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're dialing in from. We'll just give a couple more minutes for some people just to come and register and log on onto the webinar. I just want to say thank you to everybody for joining us today. And I'll give you some introductions in a second. Just for noting, if there's any issues or you want to contact anybody, please remember the email is webinar@zshi.com. Or type in the chat bar if there's anything we can help you with immediately. So we'll just give it a couple more minutes for everyone to join in. Hopefully we won't have a Google or Facebook outage and be suffering social media deprivation and the shakes and shivers that we have over the last couple of hours, as we haven't been able to contact people on social media platforms. But thankfully this platform is working for now, the famous last words.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed, fingers crossed. We'll just give it a couple more seconds for people to come in. Thank you very much to everybody who's joining so far. I'll give it 30 more seconds and then we'll begin. Just get comfortable, get your teas, coffees and waters ready as we gear up for our webinar. Okay, so I think we'll go and get started. So thank you very much everyone for joining our webinar today. My name is Tim Campbell. I'm the Future Talent Lead and Regional Head of Africa at OSTC. And I'm really proud to be leading this webinar today with an amazing panel of fellow colleagues to really talk and drill down into the important conversation of well-being. I did joke earlier about the social media platforms being a point of angst for everybody, but actually the point of communication and being connected to others is really central to some of the conversations that we're going to dig in today. And hopefully you've got rid of any problems around alerts around social media platforms, and we can all dial in today to really delve into the conversation of well-being, particularly at work, and for us here at OSTC, with regards to performance of traders and employees in a wider spectrum. Before I kick off and introduce the esteemed panel that we have and you can see on your screen, I just want to let you know there is the opportunity to interact through the chat bar, chat facility, but essentially we've got 45 minutes to take you through our conversation today on well-being, but we don't want this to be the beginning and end of a conversation. Please follow us on LinkedIn, share on social media that you're on, send out the invite to other people. There will be a recording of this afterwards, and please use that. And if you do get onto any of the social media platforms that are working now, just remember to tag us in at zshi and ostc.com, just so we can make sure we can follow the conversation online as well as here. Once again, if there are any challenges or you do want to get in contact with us via email, the old traditional way, then webinar@zshi.com is also available. So, kicking off our webinar with just a little introduction, why is well-being so important for us? Well, I think if you just look at the news at the moment, well-being is pervasive with all the conversations about the world of work. There was just a mental health charity who just posted online around the need for a future commission around what is happening at work and the focus being on well-being, whether it be the acceleration of technology, the issues and challenges and opportunities that the pandemic has presented, or just getting used to working with individuals in a work context. Well-being is central to all of those conversations. As I said, we've got an amazing panel who I want to give the opportunity to introduce themselves as I go around in a second. But as you'll see, we're joined by Ian Burler, Chris Jenkins and Fraser here. And I think I'll start out with you, Ian. If you just give us a brief introduction and start out, tell us exactly who you are and why this is so important. And Fraser, I wonder if I'll start with you.
Okay. Hi, Tim. Hello, everyone. Yeah, my name is Fraser Tahir, and it is pronounced Pfizer, just like the vaccine. I'm the head of diversity and talent development at OSTC. I've been with the organization since the onset of COVID, actually, March last year. And I'm delighted to be here and looking forward to our conversation today.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Pfizer. And you've kept me safe either in work and by your namesake with the vaccine that I've had. So that's good. So we like that. Handing over to you, Chris.
Yeah, hello everyone. Hi Tim. My name's Chris Jenkins, and I'm the head of Zishi Group. This is my 12th year with OSTC. Started off trading for them down in our Swansea office, and then over the last number of years have managed a few different ones of our trading floors. And the last couple of years, I've been looking at our education and performance technology division, which is Zishi.
Fantastic, great for you to join us, and thank you so much. And handing over, last but by no means least, to our friend Ian Burler. Please introduce yourself.
Thanks, Tim. Well, I'm Ian Furler. As you know, I'm one of the founders of the business. I've been around for a little while. Really started out with the business over 17 years ago when we were setting up in Poland. And as you'll know, with my partners, who are known to many of you, we emerged as a business from the old days of the trading floors, which were, a really masculine, really physical environment. And a lot changed when things moved to the screen, where in terms of trading, a lot changed, but in terms of attitudes, not a lot changed. And if I can be flippant for a minute, but probably not too far from the truth, what couldn't be sorted out in terms of stress or mental issues in the past with a pint probably wasn't worth talking about. And whilst things changed on the screen, a lot of those attitudes persisted. And quite early on in our days in Poland and Wales, we started looking at burnout, we started looking at performance, started looking at stress in our traders, and in our kind of early attempts to try and improve things, we did things like organized gym memberships and flu vaccines, little things, recognizing that our people could use some support before moving into things like sports psychology. And that's where we started working with some real experts and trying to understand the correlation between performance, stress levels, and in working with some really knowledgeable people in the industry. And I don't want to steal from Chris's thunder, I'll let him get into it, but some really, really knowledgeable people in the business, we started realizing there was a very, very strong correlation between the performance of our people and their HRV readings. And this was something that evolved and went through many mutations before getting to Zishi Elite, which is what we're going to be talking about a little bit later on today. But that evolution was quite remarkable, from a pint in the pub as a solution to everything to actually, wearing some and getting some really hard data and wearing devices that help us to understand what's happening with us as we trade on the screens, has been a profound evolution.
Thank you so much for that. That's really appreciated. And I know you're going to break down the HRVs and the terms as we go through in the conversation. So on that note, Pfizer, I think as a global derivatives business and education company, why is well-being so important to us, but in the wider business environment, and why should companies be taking it so seriously? Just on mute, Pfizer.
Apologies. Organizations rely on their resources and for the productivity and profit, and they generally look after that resource to maintain and grow business. So maintenance is a necessity to keep things in tip-top condition in any environment. If you look at, for instance, a manufacturing plant like Toyota or Honda, the machines that build cars are critical, therefore necessary for all the parts to be replenished and serviced regularly. Toyota won't let those machines run out of fumes and knowing that they're at breaking points. So they look after them, they invest in whatever is needed to keep them at optimum performance. Similarly, when it comes to human capital as a resource for organizations, that resource has been going through all kinds of pressures relentlessly for nearly 2 years now, in my view. And it's frankly irresponsible for any company to expect high performance without putting the necessary support in place. So one professor said, you know, resilience is a resource which gets depleted over time, and it needs nourishment and constant support to get it replenished. People have been struggling with COVID, with continuous impact on our mental and emotional health. We had the lockdown, isolation away from everything we know and enjoy, lost loved ones, constant fear of job losses, impact of confinements on our relationships and families. The list goes on, really. And all these factors are at play at the same time. It's like the perfect storm. So without investment and genuine focus on, you know, from companies to support these high performing and usually resilient individuals during the volatile and complex times we find ourselves, the bottom line will suffer. So it's much as a business imperative as it is a moral obligation when you're dealing with people. And essentially, I would say it's really about protecting your business when you invest in the well-being of your employees, really, in my view.
Just to add to that, Tim, if you don't mind, just for those people that perhaps don't know who OSTC are in some detail, we are obviously a proprietary trading firm, trading derivatives, and we aren't running, we're not like a server farm, we're not running automated strategies. We have real human beings sat down in their seats every single day trading the markets. So our people are our most valuable asset, and so we need to look after those individuals so that they are healthier, are happier, do have prolonged careers with the company, which, you know, naturally benefits them, but also, you know, is, like Pfizer said, for the survival of our business and for the future of our business. It would be irresponsible not to be doing these things. So we're very conscious of the fact that, you know, even more so in today's environment, with what we've just been through, everyone is different. Everybody suffers with different different circumstances, or manage the pandemic in different ways. But even outside of a pandemic, a bit like Ian was saying previously, the more that we invest in our individuals, the more we look after them, the more we recognise that we are all different and need to be nurtured, some more than others, and looked after. I think it's just acting responsibly, and let's not get away from it. We obviously want these individuals to be performing as best as they can. You know, it's not just a virtue signalling approach. This is real for us, and we do take this very seriously when it comes to looking after our employees, because without them, we don't have a business.
That's the business imperative that's coming across loud and clear from what you're both saying. And I suppose before I go over to Ian and ask him really about, with his history and length of service and awareness of this industry sector, this being new, I suppose, what would you say for all of you is, what is the definition of well-being? Because sometimes it comes and it's like, it's a negative thing. It's like, it's when people are broken down or sick or whatever not. But just like with mental health, is that what it is? What's your definition? I suppose if I start with Pfizer, then come to Chris, and then Ian, if you can give me yours, and then talk about, is this new in this sector, that'd be really helpful.
I think for me, well-being, it's like it's a spectrum, basically. We all have it. We all have it, and sometimes we're in tip-top condition where we're effective, we're happy, we're productive, we feel alert and at our optimum level in terms of whatever it is that we can do, we want to do, we're able to do. But there can come a time, depending on external or internal factors, that could actually be impacted in a way that optimum level that we're used to gets to a place where we're not able to perform. And that could be physical, that could be emotional, mental, financial. There are all kinds of factors and variables that could impact and actually derail that particular setup of where we are in the spectrum.
Brilliant. Chris?
Yeah, my view is exactly the same as Pfizer's. Not me to cop out on the question, but it's multi-dimensional. I feel many different variables that make it up. It's not necessarily one in particular thing. and everyone's well-being and wellness current state will be influenced to different degrees by the different variables that make it up. So that's why it's important that it shouldn't just be thought of as a one-size-fits-all, and this is wellness over here in this box for, if we solve this problem, that means everyone's well-being will be better. That's not how it works. And I think generally, as us as a business, and I think businesses as a whole, are just becoming more educated in this area now. A bit like Ian said at the beginning, the evolution that we've seen and within our industry, we are all more educated on this and start to understand it in a lot more detail. But it isn't, you know, I don't think anybody necessarily has got the answer to how to exactly improve everybody's well-being. I think it's like a journey that we're all going on, and everybody is different. But yeah, so that's my view on it, Tim.
Thank you, Chris. Ian, over to you, because you said about the history. So is this evolution or revolution? And is this wellness new for the financial sector?
Yeah, Tim, thanks. It's an evolution for sure. You know, as some of you might know, I'm a slightly over eager amateur athlete, and I train a lot, perhaps too much, according to my family. And I'm also a coach and a team manager at Blackheath and Bromley Athletics Club. And you know, we obviously talk about these things a lot. We research these things a lot. And you know, well-being and performance is so tied together, and especially when you get to high performance elite athletics, where everything is being monitored, from your sleep patterns to your training cycles, your nutrition. Obviously, HRV is something that factors in. Now, you know, finally, there's some really important research being done and some apps coming out that help women in particular in terms of menstrual cycles and training cycles. You know, you can't be ready to necessarily train on any given day just because your training schedule says you've got to do this on this day. You've got to look at yourself, you've got to monitor yourself and understand and coordinate with your coach or in the office with your manager, and understand, you know, when are those peak days for performance for you, and when are you down, when is it best to maybe take a step back, or taking a step back is going to actually get you further forward than actually just plowing on ahead, irrespective of how you feel and your mental well-being and your physical well-being. And you know, and in this regard, I think there's been a profound generational shift as well, where attitudes to work have changed. You know, work is now a part of yourself. It's a part of your holistic, all-around being. So it's not just about how much you make; it's about how you make it, and your own involvement in that. What is it that you do, and how does what you do play into your overall, you know, holistic well-being? How does it reflect on who you are and your life and your peers and so on? It's become very much a part of that of who you are, and much more so, I think, than in the past. The idea that, you know, you could in the past take off your overcoat and suddenly be a different person, that's gone. You know, it's a whole new world now. And you know, and fortunately, the stuff that we're doing, you know, in terms of the devices that we're using to monitor and measure things like HRV, I think it's much more natural now as well. I mean, goodness, we all wear devices, you know, or carry devices in our pocket.
Ian, I'm gonna ask you, what is HRV? What is HRV?
Again, I'll let Chris get into that in a little bit, but it's something called heart rate variability, and in a very, very brief nutshell, it's something that measures your how you have been handling stress. The more stress you've been putting your body through, the less good your HRV readings will be. And the less good your HRV readings will be, the less able you will be to, in our case, in OSTC, the less able you'll be to make good decisions. And the more it'll impact on how you make decisions. So, you know, it's powerful. It's really powerful stuff. And Chris has spent a lot of time working with some real industry leaders on this front that have helped us take those initial correlations that we found and really evolve them understand them and help feed them back to our people.
And that's I think that's really at the heart of this, is that people may feel this is about lighting some joss sticks and doing some yoga. And actually, there is some great science that underpins what we're doing when you're looking at it from that replicability process and how do you make people better. So I think, given that the World Health Organization actually has wellness as part of its definition around health, this is not something that's a small thing. This is a big thing. This is about mental, physical, emotional, back to Pfizer's point. And Chris, if I could bring you back in here, Ian just talked about the things and initiatives that we might be doing at OSTC and Zishi that some of the audience might want to learn about a bit more. Do you want to give us some insight, though, in particular what we've done over the pandemic as well?
Yeah, sure. So at Zishi, we've been working with 5 professors from Bangor University who work with some of the world's best athletes and teams. And we've effectively, over the last couple of years, have created an app which is effectively looking to bridge the gap between the wellness side of individuals and their performance within the office. So the way I describe it is we have performance variables such as the output that a trader will be doing in the office, money they make, trades they do, level of activity, and non-performance variables such as their mood, their sleep, anxiety, stress levels. And our app is collecting this for the traders that are involved in the initiative every single day. They are entering their data, collecting it, and what our app is doing is analyzing this data and searching for correlations between the performance variables and non-performance variables. Now, why we're doing it is the world nowadays is so focused on data, right? Everyone talks about data all the time. But what we recognized is that we as individuals are giving out data about ourselves every single day. It's just coming out of us, how we're feeling, our stress, how much we've slept, anxiety, our mood, our heart rate variability that Ian talked about, a measure of resource. Yet, for some reason, we weren't collecting this and looking at how it actually might be impacting how people are performing. And again, why do we want to do that? Well, it's data that we're giving out anyway, or our traders are giving out anyway. So why not harness it, put it into a tool that they can constantly have, in their pocket, like every other app that's out there, but actually is always working for them and analysing their own data in the workplace and about their wellness and well-being. And the point of it isn't necessarily, it's not going to tell a trader what's a good trade and what's a bad trade. Of course it's not. But what it does do is educate individuals or give them more insight about themselves, and it's their own data anyway. So if the app doesn't find any correlations between certain variables, then that's okay, that's not a problem, that would be quite normal. But if it is finding correlations between certain variables against each other, well then our individuals have got more information about themselves that can help them hopefully get themselves into that kind of optimal performance zone more frequently. And ultimately, it's not the truth of it is it's not a well-being app in truth. There are many well-being and wellness apps out there. We are a performance app that is looking at the topic of well-being as an additional point. So we are very honest about the fact that there are great well-being apps out there. We're not in that space. We are performance, but also the added benefit of looking at well-being of traders. And again, all about educating them, giving them more insight about themselves. Our traders have been at home for the last however long since the pandemic hit, and that can be stressful. They don't have the usual social interaction they would have done with other traders when they're in the office, and it's a tough environment to be in. And we reckon if we can just give our individuals every chance or every marginal increase for them to hopefully perform, then we're on the right track, right? We can't get away from the fact that we do want to make sure that we're helping them, but also it supports their performance.
And Chris, how many data points are we talking about in terms of just a ballpark to be able to analyze these patterns you talk about?
So it really varies depending on how much the traders use it. So naturally, with most apps, you get some individuals that use it every day. You get some that use it less frequently. We do have some traders, obviously, that don't use the app. But that's normal as part of any tool that people are using. But in terms of how the data collection is done, really we've tried to make it as light touch as possible because everyone's busy and we don't want it to be an onerous task. So the collection of the data happens at two points during the day. Before the traders start trading, they do what we call a pre-trading check-in, and then when they finish, the post-trading check-in. And the reason why we've done that is, again, from the analysis we've done with our professors, who, like I say, are really leading experts in the world of heart rate variability and obviously elite performance. We found that best way would be the best way of collecting data and analyzing actually how these non-performance variables are impacting performance, recognizing that correlation doesn't always mean causation. So we're very open about that. What we are doing here is holding up a mirror to an individual and saying, this is you, this is your data, and this is what we found in terms of the performance side of things. But again, to be clear, it's not a performance management tool. Managers don't see it, exec don't see it, board members, none of that. This has been designed for the individual, and only they see their own data. They don't see anybody else's data. This is for them to make use of it as they see fit, but ultimately just to open up another door into a world of data that was previously being wasted.
So this isn't Big Brother stalking you. This is Big Brother giving you a nice hug and giving you indications of what could actually work. So we like hugs. We like hugs. Now that we can hug each other again, we're getting more used to it as well. So I like the virtual hug. So Faiza, you've come in from a non-finance background into this world of trading, as have I, as it were. So coming into the world of trading, how have you found that the culture or receptiveness of the culture around well-being and how important it is?
I'll be honest with you, it's not that different from any other sector. Mental well-being in particular is something that has been shunned in businesses for quite some time until recently. For fear of the stigma that people will end up having if they were to be open and honest about themselves. And as a D&I and wellbeing manager coming into OSTC, what I found was really people were very open and receptive towards this. They may have reservations or an opinion on the whole D&I piece, which was great, by the way, because it gave me the opportunity to have dialogue and explore differences of opinions. But when it came to the well-being matters, people welcomed and appreciated the support, especially from the trading arm of the business. And I feel COVID played a role here. It was perhaps a silver lining, and also what Ian alluded to, all the things that they've done before, trying to do things differently, setting up the business. But also we had a tragedy and a loss of a colleague before COVID as well, which I believe put things into perspective and really sort of propelled our people to be more receptive to this as they have done. And I'm not saying that it was easy, because implementation is not an exact science, like Chris said earlier, and there's no magic formula to sort of fixing well-being of everyone, because again, we're all different, with different requiring different approaches and support. What I can say is that it does take a village to do so. In our case, the whole company and its people, 100% leadership commitment in order for us to even have started to have a positive impact on people's lives. Well-being transcends beyond color, creed, sexuality. It's really you know, the commonality of our collective experiences here, you know, in the past 18 months, that's really, I think, helped open up the doors wider than you and I would have probably expected. So it's been a positive response, I would say, overall.
I think that's really powerful, because sometimes from the outside it can be the cut and thrust of the financial markets, and it's all about upticks and pips and flies and making money wherever you can, as it were. Ian's impressed I even know some of the terminology coming from the outside, so that's really, really good. But I think what you're doing is really highlighting that well-being has positive and negative sides, and some of those negative ones have touched us personally, and our thoughts and feelings go out to the families involved in those difficult situations when people find it really hard. But it's also about enhancing people's performance to the maximum as well, so people find it a positive experience to get the best out. But I love the learning that actually comes from it, and the education for self, that people can say, well, actually, this is more important for me in terms of helping me to work. So that bespoke nature of it. And I suppose, Ian, for you now, we're seeing a lot more of those bespoke conversations happen in the big world of ESG, which is being focused around lots of companies, particularly with the S and the societal bit being the focus around how we look after people in the governance, how we manage resources, everything else. So from your perspective, how important is wellness in some of those ESG conversations that you lead on behalf of our business, and what are we doing in that space?
Well, Tim, it's massive, and you know, fortunately, there have been some pretty smart people in organizations like McKinsey who have gone out and done, you know, research on this subject, and what's, you know, very clear is companies that are strong on the S side, and you know, they've measured Fortune 500 companies on this, far outperform companies that do not have a strong who do not have an emphasis on the S side, and specifically in the well-being aspect. You know, and that's plain as day. I mean, you know, if you were looking after your people, why wouldn't people want to stay with your company, and why wouldn't they be in a position to work harder? And it really is as obvious as that. Yeah, I came across the other day a great quote. I believe it was from Kasparov, and I'll probably Gary Kasparov, the chess grandmaster, and I'll probably butcher the quote. So please don't crucify me for this. But the message is brilliant. There is no limit to talent. The limit is opportunity, and one of the ways in which opportunity is limited, you know, outside of the obvious exclusions through a lack of diversity and a lack of inclusion, is wellness. You know, if people are ill, if people burn out, if people you know, drop out, that's a loss of opportunity. That's wasted talent, and we've got to do everything we can to prevent that.
That's a very powerful point, and I think what comes across in lots of the ESG conversations that you introduce us to through the work on our wider conversations with other businesses is that it's a really important risk mitigation strategy for organizations to be able to say, if they don't do this, look at the potential consequences. So when people are thinking about this as a cost drawdown, actually this is an investment that has ROI that is exponential, going back to what Chris talked about around the performance data and the performance focus that comes as a result of the individuals a positive spin on what is important for them around wellness. Now, we are coming towards the end of the conversation, and I'm going to give you a chance to interject in a second, Chris. But what I'd love you to, as a panel, to think about is that at the moment, there's an interesting little conference happening in Manchester here in the UK. There'll be other conferences from other political parties, just to say that we're apolitical, that will be happening over this particular season. But if you were in the position of political influence or power, what would one of the things that you would want to do, whether it be from Kwasi, the business secretary, or Rishi as the treasury, or our very own Boris Johnson as prime minister, what was one of the things that you would want to have companies really think about from a wellness perspective if you had that magic wand? So before, I'll give you some time to think about that. But Chris, I want to come to you. Were you going to say something just then beforehand, by the way?
Yeah, it was more just a point to pick up on what Ian was saying, really, there, that as much as we definitely obviously need performance for our business, you know, speaking with many different traders, and I'm speaking with them every day pretty much at our firm, is when we talk about the output of some of the things that we're doing, whether it be the app or the work that Pfizer's doing, it's not necessarily always about instant uptick in making money. It's actually, people can say, well, if I can make the same amount, but my wellness increases or my quality of life is better, then we've done our job, if that's true, if that makes sense. Sorry, because that will naturally lead to longevity, which hopefully means that obviously they're around for a lot longer with us, and then both sides benefit. So it's not necessarily about a short-term hot topic right now. This is actually about a longer-term strategy that benefits all of those that are involved, whether it be the business side or the individuals that are actually dealing with. But you know, I think personally from my point of view and from our industry, I think once individuals link the wellness side with performance and are kind of shown this data about themselves, adoption rates and understanding naturally will increase. It's just getting people to recognize and start thinking about their body as their business, right? A bit like a sports person's body is their business. That's their mind is their business. Their wellness is their business. That's what's going to enable them to be able to continue and be as successful as they want to be. So yeah, it's just more around the point of it not being we've got a solution to this whole wellness topic. It's more of a longer term strategy that we're all working on.
Yeah, I love that, and I obviously know you relatively well. I'm jealous of how big your arms are compared to mine, but we won't get into envy on this call. But it's more so about it is performance. Although there is elements of we're saying that it's not going to solve the whole world. We're not saying this is a silver bullet. We are quite proud of some of the performance metrics that do come out of it. So from an elite app perspective, what are some of those things that you would want to shout about or give examples of, or brands that we're working with, or other things that we've done with sports people that come forward? Tell us some of the things that you are proudest of, Chris.
Yeah, Tim, you've all frozen, so I can still hear you. I hope you can still hear me. But
I can still hear you. It's because I got jealous of the comparison of your build to mine. But go on, carry on.
So we're working with a number, we're obviously within the company with our traders, and we're very proud of the fact that we're working with some of the world's leading experts within this field. We are conscious of the fact that our expertise has been typically in the world of trading and training traders, and we're honest enough to say that we need to go externally to help with really bringing the science into what we're doing. And I think that combination between us as a company and others, such as those professors from Bangor University, has been really led to some interesting insights and some significant changes and differences that we've seen with those that are using the app. So it's just been really, really interesting to actually just get insight, first and foremost, into actually what some of these correlations are, where previously we were blind to it. Now, you've all come back on my screen, so I hope you heard that. If you
we heard everything. We couldn't see your lovely smile, but we could hear everything you were saying.
So sorry, that was me, Tim. And in terms of your question that I don't know if you want me to go on to the question you're asking about on the politician side. I just think it's more. I think that companies are doing pretty well with it being more vocal now, but I do still think there's a long way to go around the whole idea around well-being and making it more of a mainstream issue. But looking at it from it's not just something to say or do because it sounds good, but actually highlighting the importance of it for businesses and for the individuals when it comes to performance. It's an obvious link that would really help get a really, really important topic more embedded in everything we do. So that would be my view, is more around highlighting those benefits of it for businesses on a performance level.
So getting the performance criteria high up the agenda next to other the non-performance elements all together on the same page. So I really like that a lot. Pfizer, now you've got a really hard task because well-being is actually in your job description. So this has got to be, this is your sweet spot, as it were. So from your perspective, you've now got the power of the political elite. What are you going to say?
Well, I don't know about that, Tim, but yeah, from my perspective, it's more practical than actually, looking at it at higher level. But from a practical perspective, it's about getting your employees involved at the start of it. It's their well-being, it's the well-being of each individual person. So there's a lot at stake here. You can't do it in isolation. You need to make good progress if people, if you get people on board and make them part of that conversation, you'll end up reaching a better solution and having better ideas that will sort of generate the outcomes that really will benefit everyone else. But like I said, it's not a panacea. Nobody actually has the exact formula of fixing it, and this is why you need difference of opinions and different people coming to actually the fore to have that conversation. And finally, well-being, as far as I'm concerned, having an agenda or a strategy or putting something in place, it's more to do with a preventative and proactive measure of an organization, not waiting and being reactive when your people are falling or when your business is falling apart because people are tired. But it's actually making sure you have the necessary things in place, foundation that will help your people to be more resilient.
I love that. It's that prevention rather than cure mentality. I really buy into that. So thank you for sharing. And Ian, last but by no means least, you've got the power now to see. You do anyway as a shareholder, so you're kind of used to this. But your turn now.
Well, again, I think a lot of good things are being done already, and I would be saying, to the powers that be up in Manchester, the kind of focus that regulators are now imposing on companies to measure certain things and to meet certain criteria are good and important. Where companies are being asked to measure their carbon output, for example, how much the carbon they're emitting. Obviously, if you're not measuring it, you don't know what you should be doing to reduce it. And if we, as a nation, as a world, do need to move forward on reducing carbon emissions, you've got to start somewhere, and that somewhere is measuring it. Pfizer and I have been looking and commenting on some initial draft papers from the FCA talking about things like diversity, inclusion, and well-being. And it's great that this stuff is on the agenda now. It's great that they're asking questions. How would this impact your company? How do you think this should be looked at within the industry? You've got to be measuring it if you're going to be doing what Pfizer was saying earlier and what Chris was saying. If it's going to be preventative, if it's going to be proactive, you've got to be measuring it, and you've got to be looking at it, and in order to know where and how you can improve.
What measures gets done is the old adage, isn't it? And I think your point around that I'd lead on to is the SMCR regulation should have that built in, that you should take responsibility for the people that you lead, because actually it's not just about what you shouldn't do or falling wayside of the line. You should have responsibility for the people that are under your leadership, because if it's a human nature, as we do at OSTC around family, that's really important. You want to know if someone's sick, or you want to learn if someone's done something like better in terms of what they're doing. I suppose as we come towards the end now, Chris, it's really about how do people find out more information? Where do we go to get a taste of what this Elite app does? How do we find out more about the studies and work that we've done in a wider context?
Yeah, sure. I mean, all of us are more than happy to be contacted on LinkedIn, the usual paths that you'd normally connect with someone, as well as emailing our webinars at thezshi.com. And again, just reach out to us. I'm more than happy to to speak in more detail about what we're doing here and our initiatives. So don't be shy about it. We are certainly up for talking more on what it is we're doing and investigating these things further with other businesses.
Fantastic. So someone will write in the chat in a second that email address. So it should be at the bottom of the webinar and on the whole side wherever everyone is. So remember, webinar@zishi.com, zishi.com. It's hard saying that with a list, that's why I had to spell it out, but just we're all about inclusivity, if you don't mind that. Once again, we're all on LinkedIn if you want to find us in any different place. But really, it's been a great pleasure to be able to share the conversation with you today. I want to say a huge thank you to my panelists, Chris Jenkins, Hrv Hrv, and Ian Burler. Thank you so much for joining. And please get in contact with us. Let's make wellness a part of normal parlance. Let's just make it something we don't even think about. It's second nature, and we do much more, as we are finding here at OSTC and with the partners that we work with. Have a wonderful rest of the day, evening, afternoon, wherever you are. And if you are in London, try not to get drowned out or lose all your social media contacts wherever we see. My garden is flooded. I don't know about yours, wherever you are. But anyway, enough of that. Take care. Have a great day and be well. Be well.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.